Welcome back to the latest episode of the Laura and Becky Show. So we were on the radio together. We did a radio breakfast show. Unfortunately, we got the sack. So we were panicking a bit. We took off to Mallorca to reassess the situation, got drunk on pale rosé and limoncello and thought we're going to start a podcast.
We are now sponsored by East Midlands Airport, Red Brick Estate Agents and Prince Family Law Solicitors.
So we're going to do something a little bit different today. We do these every now and again where we kind of like discuss a topic that either people have like emailed in about or just stuff that we've been talking about. And today it's about money. Now, we have done a money one before. This was like last year, I think maybe.
It was kind of more focused on debt, wasn't it? Really, I think.
Yes, but that was really popular. And I think that money is something that we don't really talk about a lot. So this is definitely something that's been on my mind, and I think probably a lot of people's mind, that there is a cost of living crisis going on at the moment and times are hard.
Everything is so expensive. Digestive biscuits, £3.25. How is a pack of biscuits? £3.25.
Mate, I do not know. Butter is through the roof. I mean, literally, you go into the supermarket and you see these videos on TikTok, don't you? Like comparisons from like a year ago, how much things was and how much they are now. It has gone up so much. So if you go into, I don't know, Tesco, Aldi, wherever you go shopping, and you do like a shop just for a few basics, a few essentials, you are going to spend at least 40 quid.
Yeah, it's
You
mental.
can't spend less than that.
Yeah.
It's insane. So I think there's that. There's petrol.
Yes.
Obviously is through the roof. There's people's rent is going up, mortgages are going up. Just everything at the moment feels quite heavy and expensive.
Yeah,
and money just goes.
And I think this time of year, in the summer, you don't have to have the heating on. You can dry your washing outside. Like it's a lot different. When you've kind of touched on this, when you start getting to this time of year, you start thinking, I've got to put the heating on. You know, even if you've got a fire, you've got to buy logs for the fire. Your food bill's more expensive because I feel like we eat more.
Yeah, agreed.
Do you know what I mean? And also, not only that, we have Christmas coming up, which is obviously the most expensive time of year because there's Christmas parties, you need clothes to go out and food and presents and all of that.
Yeah.
So you are kind of like, oh God, it's that time of year where you need more money than usual.
Yeah. So I feel like it's a stressful kind of time. And I've been speaking to a few of my friends about it and actually having conversations that I've never had with them before. And it's been fascinating. So we've all got this, when you look at other people, it might be on social media, it might be in real life. And you kind of look and think, oh, they've got their life together. They've got a nice car. They've got a nice house. They run a business or they've got a good job. Oh, they're always going on holiday. Oh, they've always got new clothes. You just think that they've got their life in order.
Yes.
Let me tell you guys, they haven't. Okay. And we were discussing this actually before the pod, weren't we? I think that most people probably live above their means, unless you're very, very sort of sensible and careful with that type of thing. Most people do. They'll put stuff on credit cards. They'll pay for things on finance. They'll do Klarna. We were talking about if you're buying clothes and things. But nobody really talks about it, do they?
Nobody.
I've started watching another woman on TikTok, funnily enough, who every month she breaks down her family's bills. She lives down south somewhere and it's her husband, her 2 children, I think. And she writes down on a spreadsheet exactly what the ingoings are from her and her husband and the outgoings. Mate, it's fascinating.
I've never, I do like occasionally I'll sit down and go, right, and I'll work out my outgoings and I'll look at my I don't do it religiously because I think
You'd be depressed if you did it all the time.
Yeah, I don't know. In my mind, I literally do. I mean, banking nowadays is so much easier because you can literally, I'll pay for something, it comes up on my phone. You've just paid this to this. This is your balance. This is how much. Like it literally kind of does it for you. Whereas back in the day, you wouldn't have a clue what your bank balance was. You would not have a clue.
I like to not look at my bank balance. That's how I choose to live my life.
Sometimes, and I'll admit this even now, I will have a rough guess at what it is, right? And I'll go onto my app and I'll be like, oh, it's going to be about that. I couldn't tell. Sometimes I'm a couple of hundred out and that's really bad.
Well, as well, sometimes when it's coming towards the end of the month and you might be into your overdraft, you might be over your overdraft and you go in and you pay and you think, please go through. Please don't decline. And you sort of like, you swipe it on the thing, and you think, and you try and look all cool and all casual. And when it goes through, you're just like, hallelujah, because you just don't know where you're at with it.
The thing is, I think like, there are some people that live with just the money they have. They live month to month. I think a lot of people do that at the moment.
Yeah, agreed.
The problem is when something goes wrong with your car or, you get this big bill and you think, shit, how am I going to pay this? And
Yeah.
that feeling is horrible. I think a lot of people are in that position, if not worse, at the moment.
Well, I think a lot of people generally don't have savings or money for a rainy day. Generally, I mean, you might have a bit of an overdraft or whatever, but we're all in that, aren't we? All in that all the time.
It's drafty.
It's drafty.
It's a drafty place to be.
But generally speaking, I don't think the normal average person has like, you know, a few grand tucked away for your car going wrong or whatever. So it is, when that happens, you are screwed, basically. But it was really interesting. Going back to this woman on TikTok, kind of seeing, obviously they're a 2-person household and they didn't have much left over, mate. And I did watch it and I thought, oh my God, because I'm a single person, right?
Yes.
It's just me in my household. So the money that I bring in is the money for my household. And I'm definitely struggling at the moment. And I'll go into this because I'm going to be really honest about it in a bit more detail. But for me, it was fascinating seeing this family, 2 people working, and they weren't being extravagant, actually. There was, you know, the normal bits and bobs, but they weren't spending loads on all sorts of expensive things. And they were just getting by. And this is what all the comments were saying. But I feel like this is the norm, but none of us talk about it. I was talking to a friend of mine and I told you about this, and I'm going to be a bit careful because obviously it's not my story to tell. But she was talking about, and again, she lives with her partner, 2 children. And she was telling me that she's got a massive credit card bill to pay off. And we were voice noting back and forth. And I actually thanked her for telling me that, because sometimes you think it's just you, don't you, who's either in debt or not earning enough money or struggling or whatever it is. And for her to tell me that, I felt absolute relief. I thought, oh my God, okay, there are other people who are finding it tough at the moment and not everyone has got their life in order. So I think it's really important to talk about it, isn't it?
Well, I didn't talk about it. Thankfully I'm not in that situation now, but it is horrible. Like, you feel like you're living 2 different lives. You're lying to everyone around you and yourself. I will say though, I do think nowadays, I might be completely wrong, but I do think is it more difficult to get credit cards? Is it more difficult? You can get really bad loans where you have to, it's like 100%.
Yeah.
But I do think back in the day when I was little, when I was younger, when I was 18, 19, you could get a store card just by going, yeah, I have it. And they did a check on your name and address. But I had store cards coming out of my ears, my Topshop one, and they would just higher the limit, and you could get in debt quite easily. Whereas I do think now it's quite difficult to get a credit card or a loan if you've not.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I've never had a credit card ever in my life, which is probably a good thing.
Though, no, but sometimes it's good to have a credit card.
Yes, it is. And actually, I tried to get one. It was the beginning of this year, and I couldn't get one because of what you've just been saying. It is very difficult to borrow any sort of money at the moment. Is difficult. So, I mean, probably a good thing in one respect, but I do definitely think it's a good thing to talk about. I'm going to be really honest about this kind of year, because obviously we are essentially running our own business, aren't we? So we got sacked, as everyone knows, and our money stopped overnight, which I know we bang on and on about, but it was a really stressful time, wasn't it? We've got bills to pay, we've got families, etc. And obviously then we didn't go and get another job that initially pays you a wage or kind of, you know what's coming in every month. We decided to start a business in probably one of the most stressful times for us. And obviously money doesn't come in straight away, does it?
Yeah, no, not at all.
And you have to, you're sort of doing deals and you're grateful for whatever's sort of coming in and you're managing your money and blah, blah, blah. So basically we've kind of done all right out of this podcast, to be fair, haven't we? But I remember earlier on this year, lots of things were going really well for us with the podcast, weren't they? We were doing so many things. So many people were getting on board. We're having like lots of opportunities. But money-wise, I was struggling. So, and I remember that, oh God, it was such an awful day. You and I were actually going to stay somewhere that evening. But before this happened, I knew that I had to get some help from somewhere. So I had to go to the job centre and sign on for Universal Credit. And I've never told this story before. I was really embarrassed at the time. I remember walking through Chesterfield. I had a cap on and a big coat with the collar so that nobody saw me. Yeah, going into the job centre. And I remember feeling so stressed. You know, when you get the stress rash, I'm thinking, oh my God, if somebody sees me now, they're all going to think that the podcast is failing and we're not doing very well. And that wasn't the case, but I just needed more money to live off at that time. So I remember going in and I was literally like looking left, looking right, seeing if I knew anyone in there.
Is that Becky Hayes from the Laura and Becky Show?
I mean, no one would have even cared, would they? But in my head, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying to me, because when you split with your partner, it was called something different than tax credits, wasn't it? You got on, you were like, it's amazing and it really helps you out when you need it. But still, I just felt really embarrassed. But I went in, got it all sorted, came out, and the relief I felt once I'd been in and got it all sorted was just immense. And then I met you. And I remember still feeling this absolute stress in my body when I met you. But I don't know, we went and had a drink, had some Prosecco and all was well. But so I've been on Universal Credit since, was it like March this year? March?
So, yeah.
So I wanted to be completely transparent about that. And that's really helped me for sure. It's just like boosted up my earnings each month. And I mean, I can only talk about this from being obviously a single parent in a one-person household. But I know there will be some people listening to this who are in similar situations. And I think the pressure generally, anyway, is so much when it's just you bringing the income in. And because I've got Lily as well, don't get me wrong, she's 50-50 with me and her dad. So she's at her dad's 50% of the time and then with me 50%. But that time when she's with me, and that pressure to kind of like basic stuff, first of all. So the food bills, petrol, pay all of the bills, pay the mortgage. Then obviously live with things. So at the weekend, I want to do things with Lily and like obviously, you know, buy her things.
That's really expensive. Going places nowadays, like to get in. And then the food in these places is so expensive.
Mate, it is insane. Like literally, if you are doing something with somebody for a weekend, you can easily spend 200 quid before you've even, and you look back and think, what have I spent it on? So I've definitely had to like cut back this year and just be a bit more sensible. Like we stopped having coffees out, didn't we? And that was like one small thing, but we just thought we're going to have to just be a bit more sensible. But I kind of wanted to be honest about this because also I've just had, my fixed mortgage is coming to an end beginning of December. And I've talked to you obviously a lot about this. And it's nearly doubling in December.
Which is just awful.
And you hear this happening to like lots of people. But I'm sat here thinking, I sort of know roughly what's coming in each month. How am I suddenly going to find an extra, bit of money just for my mortgage alone? So I've had a right old panic on about money this year. So and again, we've talked about this at length, what I've actually done now is taken on a little part-time job alongside the podcast. I had to do it. Like I literally had no choice. So we're still doing the pod obviously, but we're condensing it into days and we're being more effective with our time, aren't we? So I've now got a little part-time job 3 days a week, which actually I'm really enjoying. But I just think it's really good to talk about because people probably listen to this pod and think, oh my God, they're making loads of money. It's all fine. There's no stresses. They have a brilliant time all the time. It's not the case. I think everybody at the moment, even people who have got really good jobs and are earning a lot of money, everybody is worried about money at the moment.
I mean, I think there's some people that already have big mortgages. They're doubling. Like you hear stories of people's mortgages going up by like $2,000, but they've got big mortgages anyway. And there's nothing you can do about it. Because then again, if you want to remortgage, you have to have that money coming in to show you can remortgage, and it's a nightmare.
Yeah, that's the thing as well. Actually, you raise a good point because with my fixed mortgage, I have to stay with the company Santander that I'm with. And the reason for that is, so my credit, being completely transparent, over the last, since we lost our job. So obviously our income changes every month depending on what's going on. So my credit rating isn't good enough to switch to another mortgage provider. So I have to go with this one.
And a lot of people are in that kind of similar situation.
Yeah. And I honestly, I do sometimes I sit at home and I think, oh my God, is it just me in this situation? Or are other people finding it really tough? Are other people lying awake at night worrying about money? And I think they are.
Oh, my 100%. And I think as well, and we always go back to this, sometimes you feel a bit like ashamed that you're not, I mean, I certainly get it because obviously we're quite similar in that we always find something to do. Like if I look back at how I've earned money, I've had like jobs, but a lot of the time I would be like, I'm going to go and learn how to do nails. I'm just going to do that. So that's what I did. I went and learned how to be a nail technician after I had Rosie. I had to give up work because of my anxiety was just awful. And then there's always something you find to earn money, but for a while it's just been this pod. We have just been reliant on the money that came in. Before, actually, at the start when we started this pod, I had another job that paid me very well. And that ended very unfairly. And I will never, ever get over that. I'm at peace with it because I'll forget about it, but I will never, ever forgive that. It really annoyed me. And that screwed me for a bit. Because I was like, that was a lot of, I could have just lived off that just on its own. But I think,
do you know what, actually though, just as Carol, you actually raised a very good point after that happened when you were let go from that job and it was a very unfair situation. You actually said to me, I feel like maybe it was meant to happen to put us two
on a level
playing field. Yeah. And actually that is a very good point.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think like you find like other way. I've got other things that I do, but and some of that now is through social media. I never thought I'd earn money through social media. I just never thought. And something switched in my mind and you think, actually, if they're doing it, I can bloody do it.
Yeah.
So I'm, and it's not tons of money, but it's enough now for me to think, okay, this is actually worth it. And if you put the effort in, like with this, if you're consistent, you know what you're doing, you put the effort in, eventually you kind of get rewarded. But there's always that thing of, shall I just go and get a 9 to 5? Shall I just go and get a 9 to 5? But then I just think that is going to make me miserable.
Oh, mate. And listen, we discussed this a lot, haven't we? Because obviously, with running your own business, which is what we are doing with this pod and our events and everything, it's running your own business is always going to be a struggle. Everyone says this, don't they? And this is why some people don't do it. Some people do prefer to be employed and they prefer to have a 9 to 5 because they know where they're at. They don't have to think about where the money's coming from. They just get paid. They might get a pension or healthcare or whatever. It's all done for them. And they go home and they can switch off to an extent from it. When you're running your own business, obviously you can't do that. It's constant. And like we always say, we are the presenters, we're the HR, we're the salespeople, we're the editors, we're everything in this business. And that's very time consuming, isn't it, as well? So when you're running your own business, you have to it takes a lot of time and energy, but you're not always seeing the financial rewards, especially early on. Is it, they say like 3 years until you start seeing...
I think something like that.
Some problem. I mean, luckily enough, we've definitely seen money before then. Yeah. But it's a constant kind of, not a struggle because we love it. It's a constant worry.
Yeah.
I guess you would say.
And also you do feel a little bit like you question yourself. Like you just think, should I be doing this? Is this like, I had a day last week where I just sat here and just thought, what am I doing?
Yeah.
What am I doing?
Oh my God, I'm so glad you've said that because sometimes I'll look at some of my friends who've got they've worked their way up a company and they've got these really big jobs and big bonuses and blah, blah, blah. And I mean, they hate the job, don't get me wrong, they hate it, but they're doing well financially. And I look and I think, what am I doing? Yeah. Just sat here talking rubbish every day. Should I have and obviously I'm 40 this year.
Yeah.
I think, is this where I'm meant to be? Should I be in a company working my way up? So, but I think everyone questions it. People who are in those high flying jobs will think, oh, I just want to do something completely different. I want to do a passion of mine. Yeah. So I feel like everyone gets that.
And also I think, so on the flip side of that, there are a lot of jobs out there. Because there are a lot of jobs out there that you could get. Maybe it might not be the job you want, but definitely in hospitality, bloody hell, there's loads of them. And I look at younger people nowadays. So I think since lockdown, nobody wants to go into an office.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to go in and do that. They want to kind of work from home. And you've seen how some people have made money just, it just seems to be a lot at the moment where people are like, you don't need to work a 9 to 5. You can make your own money by doing this or whatever. And then I look at my daughters and just think, oh God, what are they going to do? But Grace works her little butt off. She works full time in hospitality. I couldn't do it. I could have done it at her age, and I did do it. But she is, a lot of them are like, oh, these kids, they don't want to work. My kid does, and I think a lot of them actually do. Like her boyfriend works really hard, and a lot of her friends actually have got all these jobs. But she'd an half graft. I'm not sure about the 14-year-old. Ask me in 4 years where we are with that one. But yeah, she works really, really hard. And I just think, fair play. She brought her tips home the other day. I was like, bloody.
Oh, she did all right, did she?
Yeah.
Perhaps I need to go and work in hospitality. Yeah, you're right though. There are definitely jobs out there. And like you say, it might not be what you want to do. I didn't want to go and get a part-time job alongside this podcast because I wanted to put everything into this and we love what we do.
Yeah.
But you got to do what you got to do.
Mate, your mortgages go. You know what I mean? You've almost got no choice. I mean, listen, we graft and graft, but there has to come a point where you're like, right, for now, this is what I need to go and do. Who knows what's going to happen in the future?
Exactly. And also, mate, we've got our Christmas jumpers coming out. So we're going to be millionaires this time next year. This will all be a distant memory. But no, seriously, guys, we just wanted to talk about this today because I feel like people should talk about it more. And if you are feeling the pressure with money or you're worried about it, you are not alone.
No.
Like, we feel exactly the same. So yeah, we just wanted to talk about it today.
There we go.
And get in touch. So if you are stressing about money, get in touch. We love a good old chat about worrying about money.